Association. Visit them at nfsa.org. Wayne, great to have you on as always on a Monday morning. We'd love to be talking about a big win over a rival and the momentum and all the fun stuff that goes with it, but it was not a great performance by the green and gold. What maybe surprised you most by what the Packers did not accomplish on the field yesterday afternoon?
Really, I thought, kind of a slow start on the first half overall, not so much the first quarter, but the first half overall. The disappointment was that opening drive. They took the ball, they were driving, and Josh Jacobs fumbles for the third time this year, and Minnesota recovers. And although they don't score off of that, the Packers, following that, did very little in the first half. Field goal was all they mustered, and they got behind the 8 ball. The Vikings scored 4 times, 2 field goals, 2 touchdowns in the middle of the game, end of the first half, start of the second half, and that pretty much was your ball game right there.
Are you assuaged in any way by the way that the Packers never quit against the Vikings in both week 4 and then yesterday as well, 2-point losses in both of them?
I love the way they keep playing. They keep trying to come back. That's their character. They're not going to quit. But does it change anything? No.
No, it doesn't. And I still look at, I was at the game, Wayne, and, sitting there at halftime, I'm wondering if Jordan Love had even completed a pass more than 10 yards. He had 45 yards passing at halftime. We know Christian Watson was not in uniform. That doesn't help matters, but these receivers were not able to get open. The man-to-man defense that Brian Flores employed had them bottled up. There was no one able to win their one-on-one matchup, which made things really difficult for Jordan Love. And that's a problem this team is going to have to figure out. And maybe it's as simple as Watson playing, and now you have to maybe play a little bit more zone to be aware of his speed. But that's a concern for this offense, because after Sunday, as you know, the competition's only going to be really tough. And that feels like an offensive Achilles heel right now.
Minnesota played more zone than we expected them to play, more man than we expected them to play. Normally, they play a lot of zone, and there are holes in that zone. And I was watching tape all of last week. There are a lot of holes in that zone of the secondary. It's part of the reason why Minnesota gives up more yards through the air than they do on the ground. The other factor is that they play on the lead most of the time, and teams have to catch up, so they're throwing the ball more. But there are holes in their zone downfield. Now, the trick is, can you give your quarterback enough time for the windows to open and his receiver to get into one of those windows? That's the trick against Brian Flores' defense. Yesterday was different. He came out and man. They decided to man up on this team. And that was something that I think caught maybe Matt LaFleur and his staff and Jordan Love maybe by surprise based on what Matt said after the game. But the difference in these two teams from an offensive standpoint, take a look at what Minnesota has. Minnesota has not one, but probably 2 number 1 receivers. There's a strong feeling that Jordan Addison, if he were in Green Bay, might be their number 1 receiver, okay? He's number 2 in Minnesota. All that time and attention you have to spend on Justin Jefferson, who came up big? Jalen Naylor. You're taking care of Jefferson. You're taking care of Addison. And then Jalen Naylor comes up and scores the first touchdown of the game, as he did in Green Bay in September. The problem with when you have multiple skills people like that downfield is it limits what you can do defensively on the blitz. I didn't see a whole lot of blitzing from Jeff Hafley yesterday, and rightfully so. They had to cover. Furthermore, they're missing 2 pieces in that secondary, and they're missing their middle linebacker. And I thought, they played well against the run, but against the pass, they really struggled to match up because of the fact that they had to match up with 2 number 1 receivers.
I want to talk about receivers on that same, line of questioning, just on the other side of the field with Green Bay. Going into this year, the big debate was, who's the number 1 receiver in Green Bay? Is it Christian Watson? Is it Jaden Reed? Is it Romeo Doubs? And I think most settled on the way that he performed in his rookie season, that it would be Jaden Reed. Why hasn't, in your opinion, he been a more consistent factor throughout this entire season?
Better question for Matt LaFleur than Wayne Larrabee. Reed had 4 targets, 1 catch, 6 yards. Okay? On any given occasion, Romeo Doubs, 7 catches, 58 yards. Wicks had 4 for 41. But you see what I'm saying here? Tell me somebody in that receiving core who will go out and dominate. We've seen it on occasion. It's usually not the same guy week to week who's going to lead the team in receiving. And you can say, well, that's wonderful. They have this wonderful depth. That's true. But the value of the number one receiver, okay, Jamar Chase in Cincinnati, Justin Jefferson in Minnesota, go on down the line. The Williams kid is developing into that deep threat in Detroit. Amon-Ra St. Brown requires a tremendous amount of attention. That number one receiver is valuable in this league.
Yeah, I mean, go down the list of all the NFC playoff teams, right? Tampa Bay has Mike Evans. The Rams have Puka Nacua. Washington has Terry McLaurin. Green Bay, you scratch your head, and it might require prioritizing that position earlier than Friday of draft weekend at some point in our lifetime. And now that you've got a Jordan Love, who appears to be obviously a franchise quarterback, scratching the surface of what he might be, maybe it's time to take care of him and try to bring in that. It's no guarantee, we know this, drafting a guy in the first round, but Wayne, in our lifetime, will we see Green Bay draft a wide receiver on a Thursday? Will we see that at some point?
How much time do you have left?
My time is short, Wayne.
About 8:20.
We're all day to day, boys.
No question about it. You talk about the defense, and it is pretty good against the run. It's gotten better as the season has gone on, and they're missing pieces defensively, obviously on the back end. But Sam Darnold was really good yesterday, and we are living in a world, Wayne, where Sam Darnold right now is the best quarterback in the NFC. And that's not bizarro world. I mean, it is to us, but it's a remarkable story, a reclamation project. And I know Kevin O'Connell will get all the flowers, so he'll be the coach of the year, and rightfully so. But it's remarkable, isn't it, to see the turnaround from a guy that was considered an absolute bust for the first 6 years of his career?
Yeah, you could say he's one of the best in the NFC. I think Jared Goff has had a heck of a year too, and Jalen Hurts, when he's healthy, is very good. Darnold was excellent yesterday. Number one, the Packers struggled to get consistent pressure on him. When they did pressure him, and he did get outside the pocket, he came off his spot. He made some great throws in the second half of that game. He really did, and that was impressive to see. He's found the right spot. 377 passing yards. I think that's a career high for him. He's got the right tools around him, and that's so important for a quarterback. But the Packers, unfortunately, from their base defense, their four-man rush, once again, as was the case in September, couldn't get enough pressure on Darnold. And why were they just rushing four and not blitzing more? Well, they had to cover. Because it's not just Jefferson and Addison, it's Hawkinson and Naylor as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And Aaron Jones leaking out of the backfield as well. Minnesota was in max protection most of the time. They didn't have to get out of it.
Whether it's quarterback pressure, whether it's injuries, if there's one element that is head and shoulders above anything else as the playoffs approach that is critical for the Packers to get right, in your opinion, what is it?
They've got to get off to better starts offensively. They have to come out hot. They can't ease into the game. They've got to be on the lead, and they play so much better when they're on the lead, both offensively and defensively. I think that's the number one thing. Now, how do you do that? Well, you've got to run the football effectively. You can't turn it over on your first drive of the game. Matt LaFleur did what we expected him to do yesterday, win the toss, take the ball, start driving. And they did, and it was working. But the fumble by Josh Jacobs changed the complexion of the game. Lombardi said this many times. Games can turn on a single play, and it doesn't have to be in the fourth quarter. It could be as early as the first quarter, and that game kind of changed right there, even though the Vikings didn't score. The Packers defense did a nice job, but the offense wasn't able to respond after that, except for a field goal in that first half.
One recurring problem for this team, Wayne, has been pre-snap penalties. It's been an issue all season long. And last night, more of the same. Dontavian Wicks not lined up correctly, that negates a third down conversion near the end of the half that allows the Vikes to get the ball back, attempt a field goal, which they miss, but the penalty is called on Cooper. Whether it was right or wrong, it was called. It's a nagging concern. And from a fan's perspective, I know the coaches, it drives them crazy, but fans too. It seems so easy to clean that stuff up. Why do you think it's been an issue here as we go through the season with just one game left?
Well, about a month ago, they did clean it up. They haven't had those problems in recent weeks. And then a couple of them jump up in the game yesterday. And like I said, I mean, Matt LaFleur, the Edger and Cooper thing, it's pretty much right in front of Matt LaFleur. And he said that was a bogus call, and very well may have been. Hey, listen, those guys on the field, they come up with calls that you scratch your head on sometimes. But by the same token, they had a couple, 2 or 3 of those, pre-snap violations that you just sit there and say, wow, that makes it so much tougher on yourself with those kinds of penalties. But I thought they had done a good job of cleaning that up. And then yesterday it seemed to rear its ugly head again. So at the most inopportune time, by the way.
What's your priority for the Bears game coming up on Sunday? Now we know that it's a noon kickoff. Is it just keep everybody healthy? Is it just do what you need to do to get a win and then get ready for the playoffs? Do you need to see specific things cleaned up against a bad Chicago team? What are you looking for most when Chicago rolls into town?
Well, the Packers are in the 7 hole right now, and they are not in control of their own fate. They can win, but if Washington beats a bad Dallas team, then they're going to be in the 7 hole and they're going to Philadelphia to start the playoffs. That's not where they wanted to be, at least not at the start of yesterday's game in Minneapolis. So, I think the priority is, number one, get a win, number one. Number two, kind of clean things up. Try to get a positive feel offensively and certainly get things rolling early. Get your mojo back a little bit, because I think, that's something that you need to have going into the playoffs. And so I think winning is important, but getting some of these other things cleaned up is equally as important. And, I think it's not just win, but it's how you win that will make a difference maybe in how you approach the playoffs. Hey, listen, the Packers are the youngest team in the NFL. We keep forgetting that. You can't go into the playoffs on back-to-back losses and expect you're going to win, okay? You just can't. Veteran teams can do that. Kansas City can get blown out at home last December 25th to the Las Vegas Raiders, and come back and put it together in the tournament. But they're a veteran team. They've won championships. This is the youngest team in the NFL. And so they need to go into the playoffs on a positive note, and beating the Bears, and especially if they can beat them the way they need to, then I think they could go into the playoffs in a positive note.
Yeah, you wonder if there's a temptation to rest those guys that didn't play yesterday, even if maybe they can play, to just say another week's going to do you well for the games that really matter. You can't presume at all you're just going to walk on the field and beat the Chicago Bears. But I think it'll be interesting to see as this week progresses, Wayne, what we hear about the injured players, what their likelihood is to return, primarily on defense. Getting Evan Williams back on the field. I don't know if Quay is close. Bullard getting another game under his belt. I wonder if there is a temptation to say the bigger fish is the following week. We know we're playing next week, and we want you guys 100%. I'm going to be curious to see how they handle that this week.
Yeah, well, I think, on the injured players, guys who are questionable, and there were a couple of left yesterday, some of those play. What you might do this week of all weeks, and the Packers usually do this anyway, err on the side of caution with some players who are banged up. But that doesn't mean you sit all your veterans and you play your backups and all this other stuff, unless you get off to a big lead on the Bears, and then maybe you pull back the troops a little bit to get ready for the playoffs. But no, I think the Packers are a young team. They need to get momentum going into the playoffs. A win over the Bears would provide a little bit of momentum, let's put it that way, going into the postseason.
Is that all we got? I hear the music playing. We didn't hear that music playing yesterday. Green Bay didn't give us a lot of chance for Todd Rundgren to go crazy. It'd be nice to be back at home for the season finale at Lambeau Field. We know that'll be the last game at Lambeau Field, barring a miracle, right? Good to have the Bears in town. The perfect salve for your wounds is a Chicago Bears, Green Bay Packers game, right, Wayne? It's always nice to welcome those guys to town.
I hope so, yeah. I think so. I mean, they've beaten them, 11 in a row? No one's ever won 12 in a row in the series. So
let's make it happen, shall we? Let's just make that happen.
Nice even dozen.
Thank you for joining us. Happy New Year, Wayne. Enjoy the New Year festivities. We'll look forward to your call next Sunday afternoon.
Same to you guys. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Wayne.
Our conversation with Wayne has been brought to you by Steam Fitters Local 601 and the National Fire Sprinklers Association. When we come back, we'll get Mike Heller's thoughts on the Packers' performance as he joins the game, and Doug and me on the other side of this break. You're listening to Zabin Butch on The Game.
Touchdown, Green Bay Packers!
Packers Monday is brought to you by Habish, and Rotier. National reputation, hometown service. Go to Habish.com and by Bath Fitter of Milwaukee.
Oh, my goodness!
The countdown to 2025 is in full swing.
iHeartRadio and ABC bring you Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve.
Join me, Ryan Seacrest. It's America's biggest countdown party of the year.
Tomorrow night, starting at 7. Watch on ABC.
At Boost Mobile, we spent 2024 building the newest 5G network in America with fast and reliable coverage. But all our efforts wouldn't matter without you. So thank you. And if you haven't switched yet, head to boostmobile.com and let's start 2025 right.
Nothing to complain about on the roads this morning with the exception of construction. 43 northbound, the on-ramp from eastbound Brown Deer, and 43 northbound, the off-ramp to westbound Brown Deer. Those ramps closed until January 1st. If you see any issues, call the Tri-City National Bank, your hometown bank, total traffic tip line at 414-944-5111. I'm Bonnie Green.
This report is sponsored by Unbound.org. Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice. Continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at Unbound.org.
The Milwaukee Weight Loss Program has been able to change the lives of thousands of people with this incredible metabolic reset program. We know the secret to losing up to 1 pound of fat every day with no exercising, no prepackaged meals, no counting points or calories, no drugs, no surgery, and no injections with the risk of serious side effects. There's no better time than now to give yourself the gift of a new you this new year. The caring team at Milwaukee Weight Loss can help you thrive in 2025. Schedule your free consultation now by visiting MilwaukeeWeightLoss.com.
Hey guys, Billy Schmidt here with Milwaukee Weight Loss. I can speak to their program helping you reset your metabolism because when I went in, my metabolic age was that of a 90-year-old. The new you can be right around the corner in 2025, and Milwaukee Weight Loss's caring team can help you thrive in 2025. Many patients lose 20 to 30 pounds in the first month or two. So call for a free weight loss consultation. It's 262-433-4008. That's 262-433-4008, or visit them online at MilwaukeeWeightLoss.com. That's MilwaukeeWeightLoss.com. And tell them Billy Schmidt sent you.
I'm Larry Mazza, legendary Colombo family bookmaker and founder of Insight Straight, the only sports betting information site that defies Vegas odds. How do I do it? Well, after years of working for the family, I have all the connections and all the insider information, experience, and knowledge. All sports, including horse racing. I pick them, you win. Sign up at InsightStraight.com now for the podcasts and the picks you can't refuse.
Must be 18 or older.
Accomplishing goals is hard, but when your goal is to learn a new language, Babbel makes it easy. Babbel is designed with you in mind. From expert-created lessons to conversational video units and even live classes, you can personalize your Babbel experience to be exactly what you need to really learn a new language more easily. Go ahead, set a goal for yourself. Accomplish it with Babbel. Try Babbel for free. Go to BABBEL.com. That's Babbel.com.
I've always gotten tons of UTIs. Cranberry products never worked for me, and I was desperate for a way to be proactive. I'm Jenna Ryan, CEO and founder of Eucora. We've worked with doctors to develop effective urinary tract health products. Just mix a packet of Eucora with water and drink it when you need support, like right after intimacy. Eucora is helping over 100,000 women stay healthy. Ready to join them? Get 30% off at eucora.com/radio. That's UQORA.com/radio.
Grab the contest rules for 97.3 The Game at thegamemke.com.
The Fox 6 weather experts are presented by AdventKnows.com.
Patchy fog possible inland this morning. Otherwise, we'll have mostly cloudy to partly cloudy skies today. High temperatures in the upper 30s to low 40s with a west wind about 5 to 10 miles an hour. I'm Fox 6 meteorologist Lisa Michaels.
This report is sponsored by Northern Tool and Equipment.
Now's your chance to see a Monster Jam truck in person. Stop in at Northern Tool and Equipment in West Dallas on Thursday, January 9th from 2 to 6. And bring the kids. This wrecking machine will blow you away. Northern Tool and Equipment.
What's up, everybody? Adnan Burke here to tell you about a new podcast. It's NHL Unscripted with Burke and Demers.
Jason Demers here, and after playing 700 NHL games, I got a lot of dirty laundry to air out.
Each week we'll get together to chat about the sport that we love.
But we're not just going to be talking hockey, folks. We're talking movies. We're talking TV, food, and Adnan's favorite, wrestling. It's all on Le Table.
Listen to NHL Unscripted with Burke and Demers on America's #1 podcast network, iHeart. Open your free iHeart app and search NHL Unscripted with Burke and Demers and start listening.
This season, Drew and KB and Buffalo Wild Wings around the state are teaming up for the Football Feast. Every Thursday, get your feet on with buy one, get one boneless wings, $4 Miller Lite and Coors Light 22-ounce drafts, and someone is going home with Packers tickets.
It's the regular season finale in New Berlin. Join us at Buffalo Wild Wings on Beloit Road.
Stop by and you could win tickets to Packers Bears at Lambeau.
The Football Feast with Buffalo Wild Wings and 97.3 The Game.
Why? Why? I don't know why. I don't know. Never been in a fight. You?
No, but that's a good thing.
No, it is not. How much can you know about yourself if you've never been in a fight? I don't want to die without any scars. So come on, hit me before I lose my nerve.
Everybody's slowing down on a Friday night somewhere.
See, that's the difference between us. You think we're fighting, and I think we're finally talking.
You ain't done nothing if you did it.
It's David Butch on a Monday morning. Dave Sinykin, Doug Russell in for the boys today as we welcome in Mike Heller, who thankfully cannot wait till noon to get his thoughts across. Mike, a lot of things irritated all of us by what we watched at US Bank Stadium. What is number one on your hit list on this Monday morning?
Well, I would guess that it's the difference in these two teams right now is quarterback play. Jordan Love is very much in the NFL currently a middle of the pack quarterback in the entire NFL. And the gap between what the Packers offense looks like throwing the ball compared to what Detroit's does and what Minnesota's does is dramatic. The Packers don't have their highest ranked wide receiver in yards is Jaden Reed with 39th, and in touchdowns, it's Jaden Reed at 28th. Part of that is quarterback play. Part of that is, as you guys were talking about, do you truly have a number one wide receiver? Jordan Love's only been sacked 14 times. And then yesterday, Sam Darnold, who had been sacked 45 times coming into the game, he only gets sacked once. You talk about every time we do lead-ups, Dave, into a game, we're talking about, well, how do you win this game? Well, you got to win the turnover battle. And, that was even yesterday. Packers fumbled, and they got an interception. But then you have to make the other quarterback uncomfortable. Did Sam Darnold ever look uncomfortable yesterday? That dude was as calm as can be. He had a pocket to climb into, and he makes all the throws. So I think the biggest gap right now is that the Packers have youth and that their quarterback is not playing the way that quarterback played the last 8-9 games of a year ago. I think he can, but right now he's no better than the third best quarterback in the division. And statistically, he's like 18th in the league. You don't win very often in January, end of December and January when you get to the playoffs if your quarterback isn't special.
Well, if you looked at the overall statistics last year as well, and I know it was his first season as the Packers starting quarterback, and the second half was really remarkable. But if you look at the 18 games or 17 games in totality, I mean, he was pretty mid there as well. You look at how he's performed, at least as far as taking care of the football. He still only has one interception since the bye week, which is now almost 2 months ago. I don't know if it's just quarterback play. Maybe it's offensive line play. Maybe it's because we still haven't gotten the best out of the wide receivers. Maybe it's because Christian Watson hasn't been able to be on the field. But I don't know if you're fairly putting too much on just one player. And I know that's kind of the nature of the position. I think the question
was about yesterday. And yesterday, the biggest gap is one quarterback throws for 377 and the other quarterback throws for 185. Yeah, but I think that there's more amount of that was garbage time.
Fair. I don't know if it was garbage time. I mean, they still had a chance to win the game at the end.
Minnesota kind of, for whatever reason, bad on them. They stopped playing aggressive. I mean, they weren't very good defensively inside of 9 minutes to play in the game. I think they thought it was over.
Perhaps. All I'm saying is that I think that, in my opinion, the only pushback that I'll have is I think it was more than just the quarterback play. Yesterday, Sam Darnold was better than, I'm not arguing that Sam Darnold was better than Jordan Love yesterday. There's no question about that. I think in my opinion, it just goes a little bit deeper than that because, at the beginning of the game after the Josh Jacobs fumble, I thought that just disjointed the whole team. It disjointed certainly the offense, and I think it disjointed the play calling as well.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to get by that the season right now for Jordan Love in totality has been mid. You can win with that guy. This is my always argument on quarterbacks. Can you win with him? Absolutely. You can win with Jordan Love. Are the Packers winning much because of him this year? And I think the answer is no, they're not. And I think there's a dramatic difference in ball placement accuracy when you watch what Jared Goff does and when you watch what Sam Darnold does, and then you watch some of the other elite quarterbacks that are playing in the league. I think Jordan Love can still be a very good quarterback. He's not having a very good year.
From my seat in the end zone yesterday, it gave me a really good chance to see what Love sees as he's dropping back to pass. And what he saw yesterday was wide receivers that were not open, that were being covered. Dave. And so it's going to, we've already gotten the text coming into the Nicolay Law talking text line, like T. Higgins, like bring in a number one receiver at all costs. Help out your young quarterback, because every other team, and we just talked about this with Wayne, I'm sure you were listening, every other team that Green Bay could face in the postseason has a stud wide receiver that will have been a Pro Bowl, that will deserve all pro votes, from Mike Evans to Puka Nacua to the guys in our division to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. And the Packers have nothing even close to that. So how big a priority with money to spend in this offseason? I don't know what the crop looks like yet. I know T. Higgins will be the big name. If you're spending the money, how big a priority is it for you to try to locate a number one receiver to add to this core?
Yeah, I think that's important. I don't know, like you just said, I don't know what the crop is going to look like. Here's the thing. I think maybe more important in the near term, Christian Watson, when he's on the field, is kind of a game-changing guy like that. I don't know that he's any of those guys, but he tilts the field. It's funny because when they're going well and Watson's on the field, we say, well, who does the defense defend? You got Watson, you got Reed, you got Dobbs, you got Wicks, you got Kraft, you're going to have Musgrave, and you got Josh Jacobs. There's so many weapons. Who do you defend? And then you play a game for 3 quarters and 6 minutes like they did yesterday offensively, and you go, they don't have a one. So I get it. I don't know where that works from. I think more importantly in the near term, we're looking at a team that almost certainly is going to go play the LA Rams in the wild card round of the playoffs. If they win and Washington loses, that's who they get. The other certainty is if you stay right where you are, you're going to go to Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. You play the 2, and then a week later, you would play either, if you won, you'd play either Minnesota and Detroit. And the problem with that is you're 0-5. If you end up being the 7 seed, you're 0-5 against the teams that you would play in the wild card and divisional round. And that doesn't yield a ton of confidence from the fan base, or I would assume in the locker room. They'll say the right things, but I can't, Xavier McDaniel said it yesterday. Xavier McKinney said it yesterday. Yeah, we haven't beaten any of these guys, so I guess that's on us right now. And essentially paraphrasing what he was talking about, lacking some confidence if they can't beat those teams.
I asked Wayne this a few minutes ago. I'd like to get your perspective on it as well. If there's one thing that you need to see the Packers clean up, whether it's injuries, whether it's quarterback play, as you mentioned before, whether it's the defensive secondary, what's the one thing going into the playoffs that they need to do above everything else if they're going to have any kind of success?
I don't think they have a shot, Doug, unless they get healthier. Watson's got to be on the field, and Jair's got to be on the field, and Quay's got to be on the field, and in the secondary, Evan Williams, his return would be paramount. Listen, the NFL is not a team is not a league that's filled with healthy teams.
Sure.
When you get to January. So I'm not complaining that the Packers have been injury bitten, because they're not compared to the league. They haven't had the catastrophic injury unless you think of Jair that way. They have to be healthy. They have a puncher's chance. I thought over the last couple of weeks, I thought the Packers were as good as any team in the NFC. And then you come off of what we saw yesterday, and it creates a lot of doubts. It is a victim of the moment, but then you look at the bigger picture and you say, well, you lost a one-score game to Philly. You lost a one-score game to Detroit, another game that wasn't one-score, and you lost 2 one-score games to Minnesota. But were they? And you think of those 5, and it creates doubt, especially in the fan base. And with some of the jabrozos who are on there talking about this being a Matt LaFleur issue, I like that Wayne brought up, and people call it an excuse. I love that Wayne brought up, this is the youngest team in the NFL. There are going to be growing pains. Nothing's linear. Are the Packers good enough to make a playoff run? Until yesterday, I thought so. I've got to remove myself from being a victim of the moment and see if we can't change that mindset by the time they play on the road at Philly or the LA Rams. I would suppose one of those two in that wild card weekend.
This is the second season where we could just we have the youngest team in the NFL. I'm for one, I'm tired of hearing about being the youngest team. I don't want to be the youngest team in the NFL. You've got pieces now that can compete with anybody in the NFC, if not the NFL. Let's dodge that moniker next season. You always want to overturn your roster, bring in a great draft class. I get all of that. But it would be nice to have some veterans you can rely on for these big moment type of games. You know, as it turned out, the best Packer on the field yesterday was a rookie in Edgerrin Cooper. And if you can get those pieces back that you talked about defensively, Quay and Evan Williams and Jair, which we don't believe necessarily will happen, but at least most of those pieces, it does give you hope that they can compete against the prolific offenses they're going to face. But I, for one, would like to see a couple veterans brought in. It's time to win now. You've got the pieces. Can we be done being the youngest team? Finally?
Yeah, I think, yeah. I don't have a problem with it last year and this year. Last year, nobody expected that team to be a playoff team. In fact,
Correct.
I expected the Packers to be on Hard Knocks this summer
Right.
because they were going to miss the playoff 2 years in a row and not change their head coach. And I thought it was going to be an automatic. So they have made that stride. And, yeah, I would agree with you. This year, they bring in Josh Jacobs. I mean, that was a significant move. Xavier McKinney, a significant move. You make 2 moves like that next year, and suddenly I think you are moving in that direction. But I don't have doubts, but I haven't seen it this year that Jordan Love is on a level with the guys that we talk about in the top tier among quarterbacks in the NFL. Now, he's got time to prove it. This is the end of his second year as a starter. But at the end of his second year as a starter, I don't place him in the category among the top 8 or 9 quarterbacks in the league. He's a just above middle of the league quarterback by performance, I believe. And he'll have to make that next step too. And some of that goes with having a wide receiver as well.
In that same vein, I'm asking you just for your opinion. Nobody's going to hold you to it. And the answer may change in time. But as we sit here today, December 30th, 2024, in your opinion, Mike Heller, is Jordan Love the guy that's going to carry this team to a Super Bowl?
I think he has the ability to be the guy. He's had one enormously great stretch of football in his career, and it was really good. His last 9 games a year ago that's why we have a different view of him. And he's not played at that level at any point this year, even though he's in a run of his last 6 games where he's just thrown the 1 interception, and I think he's got 14 touchdowns and 1 pick in that time. So that looks pretty good. But then I look at yesterday's game, and in some of those moments, I don't think he's been that guy. I think he has the ability, Doug, but there's a step or two out there in front of him, because right now he's no better than the low teens in the league from a quarterback standpoint in how he's played.
If you had to put $100 on it, yes or no?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, you watch what we watched last postseason, and what he did down in Dallas was almost a perfect game. He goes to San Francisco against that defense and leads the team to being this close And you're right. We haven't seen that level of play. And I know he wasn't healthy early and he had to get his legs back. I wonder how much he heard the echoes about all the interceptions and what that might have done to, him wanting to take chances. We didn't see him throw the ball downfield at all yesterday, and a lot of that was the coverage, and his guys weren't open. But do you think he's hearing about all the picks and that you can't be a successful quarterback if you're turning the ball over, and maybe that's changed the way he's going out and trying to compete?
Yeah, but David, I kind of take that as a positive. I thought he threw. Okay, so if you're devoid of a Jamar Chase, if you're devoid of a Justin Jefferson or even an Addison, you don't just fully trust your receivers to go up and make plays. And I think he did early. But in the first game against Minnesota, he just made a dramatic mistake off the blitz on a first down play. He just threw one up toward the end zone and had it intercepted. I think that part's been better, actually. I think yesterday in particular, and you got to see it in a way that we don't, Dave, and that is from the end zone and in person, where you get to see that there are receivers open or not open.
Yeah.
We can't see that on TV copy. And I do think that yesterday, Minnesota was a much better team. The score is going to be misleading because I'm one of those that believes they thought the game was over, and it wasn't. But for 3 quarters and 6 minutes of the game, it was over. It's 27-10 with 9 minutes to play. And then I think Minnesota got soft. I think they thought it was done.
I think most of us did. I certainly did.
Well, I posted something
So did I.
about a beatdown.
Yeah, I posted something about just go in and wash up and get ready for the Bears.
People are ripping me that I said it was a beatdown. It was a 2-point loss. Well, it was a beatdown with 9 minutes to play.
Yeah, it was.
That's when I posted.
No, you're not
that.
wrong. Yeah,
I was ready to leave. I want to beat the crowd, Jackson. Let's go. He was having none of it. He was doing the skull chant, my son, and was not letting me leave, and for good reason. I'm glad I stayed.
The Vikings have fooled everybody. They have the legit shot to go ahead and earn the 1 seed, and they are a Super Bowl caliber team. I did not think so. I didn't even think so when that game kicked off yesterday, that Minnesota was a Super Bowl caliber team. I had them as 5th best in the NFC, 4th best in the NFC. I had Philadelphia, Detroit, and Green Bay as the top 3, and then Minnesota next.
But fortunately, that gives them their opportunity to make their fans sad again.
Yes, well, absolutely.
It's inevitable.
You're looking for your buddy Paul Allen to make one of those calls in the postseason that we play for years and years and years. But right now, they're pretty damn good.
Yeah, they are.
They really are on both sides of the ball. And, their kicker now is their biggest problem because he's missed a few and everybody's freaking out up here about their place kicker. So there's always something to worry about.
Yeah, that's
for this team.
It's a postseason issue now, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is. It sure is.
Times for that franchise.
Close out with the Bears next week. We know that Green Bay must win and hope that Dallas can upset Washington to avoid the trip to Philly. It's a game you obviously should win against a Chicago team that hasn't won since the Hail Mary in Washington. And they own this team. We know that. But there's some sense of, let's get our swagger back. Even if you're not going to prove a lot by beating Chicago, you can erase a lot of the ugliness if you just get back to playing a game on your home field against a hated rival and stomp them out. You got to get some kind of momentum going because as it stands right now, the road through the NFC for Green Bay is about as perilous and dangerous as it could possibly be.
Yeah, and from a fan base standpoint, there are a ton of doubts. Now, the question is, are the doubts in the locker room when you're 0-5 against the teams that have better records than you?
Mm-hmm.
Are there doubts in the locker room? Because the fan base is filled with doubts today. That's what fans do. We're very volatile, as all of them everywhere with every franchise. But the fans right now don't believe that this team can make a January playoff run. Does the locker room believe it? And you can't measure that. It's a fair question to ask when you get to that second weekend in January and you're playing a wild card game.
Yeah, I'm not sure Packer fans believed it in 2010 either, right? When they went in to the postseason as the 6th seed.
And Deshaun Jackson.
Well, a little bit different going in, right?
100%. 100%.
So we'll see.
We will look forward to you noon to 3 today with all your thoughts, comments on the afternoon show. We'll all be listening. Thank you, Mike Heller.
All right, boys. Thank you. Have a good day.
See you, Mike.